and welcome to the third and final installment of the Understanding by Design Stage 3 Planning and Learning Experience. Stage 3 should be derived from the goals in Stage 1 and the assessment that you have developed for Stage 2. This way, it ensures alignment and effectiveness of the um, course, but it also leads to a validity of the course too. Now, what you are going to do is take the transfer, meaning, and acquisition, and that's what this stage is going to be developed from. You want to make sure that those three items are presented in this plan. In order to do that, you have to be able to use the acronym where to. And where to stands for um, what, where, and why do you want them to do it? A hook and hold. What equipment and experiences are they going to need? Um, to rethink and revisit, to self evaluate, tailor your tailor your plan to the needs of the student, and to organize the sequence of learning. And we'll talk about all those as we go through this. So the first one we're going to come to is the W, and that is where and what is expected and why. So what this does is this goes back to the acquisition, meaning, and transfer, and it's going to tell us, what it is that we need to ensure that the students get out of this big picture. Smart learning objectives have to be very specific. They have to be measurable. They have to be obtainable. They have to be results focused, and they also have to be time focused. So we're going to write the who, what, where, and why, or the where, what, and why. Sorry, with those five things um, in time. Okay. Once we get the goals established, then we have to go down to relevance and what does those goals mean to the student. So we want to write what those mean to the student. What relevance do they have, and then you have to give a diagnosis of how are you going to decide, or how are you going to evaluate what the student already knows. Is it going to be, are you going to give a pretest? Are you going to give a pre-question and answer uh, survey, a roundtable or something, so that the students can see what they know and so you can evaluate what they don't know. So now you're going to go to the hook. And the hook, the H, is hook and hold. So what are you going to use in your class that's going to hook these students and get them interested in what's going on? So, for fire and EMS, it's really simple. You get a bunch of firemen out there and you light something up. You've hooked them. You're gonna they see fire and they're like moths to the light. Um, EMS, anything with blood and gore is, you're gonna hook them. So, the example I used earlier in stage two was, defining what FEMA response was prior to the 1800s. How do you hook and hold them? Well, it's really easy. I think what you do is you give them a scenario of a Mississippi River flood, which, everybody now has seen the Mississippi River flood. You know, let them see some pictures of it, hook them, and then have them do their class project or whatever from that. Technology. So, what kind of technology are you going to use? Are you going to use old photos? Are you going to use PowerPoint? Are you going to use video? You know, are you going to use archival information? Things like that. So with equipment and experience, this can be using the library. It could be using the online library. It could be using archival footage from the National Archives. However, it is. This is what we put in this section, what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. The next section is rethink, revise, and refine. So this is going to give the students an opportunity to rethink what they think they already know and revise it and align it to what um, the work is in the class that we're teaching. Um, this is the section where the students have to be able to understand what's going on and how it relates to the rest of the where to. So also in rethink, revise, and refine, this could be also giving students projects to do where they learn about other disasters, sticking with our natural disaster theme, other disasters or whatever, so that they can see how it was handled, early on in the country's development versus, maybe give them another one, in the modern day 20th or 21st century, so that they can see, the difference of how it was handled. Reflection and self-regulation. Um, want to give the students time so that they can read and learn what's their skills are. We want them to, if they do a paper, you want to give them enough time that they can get a good amount of information into it. Not information overload, but a good amount of information that it makes sense and they understand um, what it is that we want them to reflect on and to self uh, regulate and how their skills. So if we're doing a um, if if we are doing a term paper, we want to give them a chance to do their own research. We want to give them feedback during that time so that they know, Wikipedia, even though it has good resources at the end that you can use. Wikipedia itself, you can't use what's written in there as a source because it's not always checked. But the resources and the footnotes that they have at the end are a good way to find other resources that you can use. So formative feedback and evaluation. So how are we going to get them to the point of transfer and learning? So, it could be a written test. It could be we've all had those blue books in uh, college. It could be, a 2 or 3 question blue book test. Hated those in a college, by the way. Or it could be a term paper or something that makes them get out and actually show what it is that they have learned. If you do a term paper, though, you have to be very specific at what points they um, need to use. What they need to show, so that in the grading rubrics you would be able to tailor that towards what it is you're evaluating students on. So, since this is a technologies class, we want to tailor it so that they get to use some type of technology. So, again, you would teach them, how to do a term paper in APA style, how they would go about getting online and researching um, term papers, how they would go into their specific library online and get the information that they would want. This is what is in this section right here. And then organized towards learner centered strategies. So you want to um, give them as much leeway as you can and as much opportunity as you can to get good grades or to demonstrate that they know the subject. So, one person may not write very well, but they can do a class project that is out of this world. So, you want to set up more than one way of assessing these students so that everybody has an equal opportunity. Organized to be authentic. So if we stick with our example of the national disasters, I think students will have a chance to research all the real world problems in natural disaster. They'll be able to collaborate with other students. They will be able to assume professional roles if you set up the class to have a FEMA office that is now sent out to rural Alabama because of a tornado. And these kids have to go out, give them problems that they have to solve by learning what our class objectives are. So, organizing to creativity, higher order skills, and mental habits of mind. So, mental habits of mind are 16 uh, different problem solving related skills um, that you can develop into your classroom. So, one is persisting, managing impulsivity, listening and with understanding and empathy, thinking flexibly, thinking about uh, thinking, which is metacognition, striving for accuracy, questioning and posing problems, and there's others here that I'm not going to go through. So what you have to do is come up with a plan that incorporates some of these into your teaching. So, if you just take one, thinking flexibly, and we stick to our national disaster example, students are going to have to be able to think flexibly because nothing goes right in a disaster. You're going to have times when plan A and plan B do not work, and you have to go to plan X or Y before you get something to happen. So that would have to be filtered in there. Technology, using technology in a higher order thinking, they're going to have to be able to analyze. They're going to have to be get on the computer and look at different things in order to understand what's going on and what they may have to look up older disasters to figure out, hey, this happened in you know 2001 and they did this with success. Why won't it work here? Then they have to think of the critical thinking skills come in, and they have to be able to work on that. So those are all what has to be put into this way. Um, so organized to assess students' learning. This is just a continuous learning. So they're going to be observed in class. They're going to be handing in homework. So that's all going to be listed here of what we're going to do to continually learn them. Now, the important thing is you have to give feedback. So if you see something that's not right or you see something that is off, you need to give feedback as soon as you can so that the student understands what's going on. Now, there is one thing that I do want to mention. So if you're giving them habits of the mind, problems where they're having to think flexibly or think about thinking or strive for accuracy, you may want to hold off on the feedback a little bit so that they can actually think through the problem before you give them a solution. They may not get it right away. It may be a few minutes before they can um, get to it, but with you standing there observing, they're going to be able to figure it out. Organize to use technology and analyze data. And again, that is, how are they going to use technology in this class? What are you going to use it for? Are you going to use it for resources? Are you going to use it for references? Are you going to let them, look things up for different problems? Things like that. That's what, you know, you want them to be able to do. So, this is the end of the three uh, videos. Here is the resources that were used in creating this. This was This template was developed by Dr. Sherry Stover and used for EDT 8120 at Wright State University for the um, curriculum educational technologies program. Um, it's a good program. I suggest everybody who wants to try and do this to check it out on the web. And thanks for listening to me.